Jean Piaget, the famous Swiss biologist and psychologist, um, Theory of Cognitive Development by Lauren Sevier. Early life of Piaget. Piaget was born on August 9th, 1896 in Switzerland. He was the oldest child to Arthur Piaget and Rebecca Jackson. Piaget's mother, Rebecca, believed that his fascination with science began with some of his own mental functions. His father was a dedicated college professor who taught medieval literature, which had an impact on Piaget's drive to succeed at an early age. At 10 years old, Piaget had an obsession with mollusks, which led to him spending lots of time at the local history museum. Early professional and personal life. At the age of 11, Piaget was attending high school. He wrote a short paper over the albino sparrow, which was published all over the world by the time he was a teen. He attended college at the University of, I'm going to try and pronounce this the best I can, Neuchâtel, where he studied zoology and received his doctorate in 1918. For a short amount of time, a semester to be exact, Piaget studied psychology. This took place at the University of Zurich. Early professional and personal life continued. He then went to Paris, where he spent 2 years at the Sorbonne studying philosophy of science, logic, and abnormal psychology. Piaget was married to Valentine Chladni. He had 3 children, 2 daughters, Jacqueline and Lucine, and 1 son, Laurent. And what I learned from researching Piaget, he actually was so fascinated by watching his children grow and go through these different stages, which led him to develop part of the reason of him developing the theory of cognitive development. So that was super neat. How we are all fascinated in watching our children grow, but he actually took something out of that and made a theory out of it, which is super neat. Career as an educational psychologist. Piaget worked with Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon in Paris. Binet and Simon developed an intelligence test for children, and Piaget, along with Binet and Simon, were reviewing the responses to the test. This is where Piaget realized that the children of the same ages had the same responses to the test, which led to his theory of cognitive development. In 1921, he was the director of studies at the J.J. Rousseau Institute, which was located in Geneva. From 1925 to 1929, he spent 4 years working as a professor at the University of, once again, I'm going to try to pronounce this the best I can, Neuchâtel. Career as an educational psychologist continued. From 1929 to 1968, he served as the director of the International Bureau of Education. In between that, from 1954 to 1957, he was the president of the International Union of Scientific Psychology. From 1955 to 1980, he was the director of the International Center for Genetic Epistemology in Geneva. From 1971 to 1980, he was the emeritus professor at the University of Geneva. So he was a very, very successful man. Career as an educational psychologist continued. So here we get into the theory of cognitive development, which made Piaget super famous. Excuse me. The sensory stage is the birth to 2 years old. And this is the stage where they are exploring and learning about the world around them. And they do this by using their 5 senses. Hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, feeling, all of that Which, if you notice, if you're a mom or if you work with kids, you notice that during this stage, when they start crawling and start to walking, they get into everything. They want to touch it. They want to taste it. They want to do everything with it. And it's very neat after researching this that they do go through this sensory motor stage. So they are also learning about object permanence, which means they know that an object still exists even though they cannot see it. So, for example, if I show my son a ball and then put it away, he still knows that the ball is still there even though he cannot see it. The next stage is the pre-operational stage, which happens about 2 to 4 years old. They ask lots of questions during this stage, and boy, do they. I have a 3-year-old, and everything is why. Why, Mommy? Why is that? Why is that tree green? Why is this yellow? Why is that so-and-so? Why does that look like that? Everything is asking a lot of questions, as well as using their imagination, which is super neat. I love watching kids use their imagination. They're also understanding object permanence, but not quite understanding the concept of conservation. So, just like the glass of water example that he talked about in class, Professor Long talked about in class. When you have 2 glasses of water and you have one tall glass, the water that's in the same let me start over. There's 2 glasses. They have the same amount of water in them. If you pour that same amount of water into a tall, skinnier glass, it looks like there is more water in that glass when there's not. So, but during this stage, they're not understanding that the same amount of water is in that tall, skinny glass. So, which leads us into the next stage, the concrete stage. From ages 7 to 11 years old, they are beginning to use logic and operational thinking and apply it to physical or concrete objects. They fully understand the concept of conservation now, and as well as inductive reasoning, which a good example of inductive reasoning would be, my son breaks out in hives every time he touches a dog, which means he is allergic to dogs. They are also understanding reversibility. So an example of reversibility would be, my dog is a pug is a dog is an animal. They are also learning about sociocentrism, or their understanding about that, which they are understanding that others have their own thoughts and feelings that are different than my own. So not everybody thinks and feels the same as I do. And then we get to the formal stage, which begins around age 11 to 12 and going to adulthood. They are able to make inferences and use abstract thinking. I found a YouTube video that I found was it explained it a lot better than I could, because it's the last stage, but I really want to share this video with you guys. Let me click on it here. And it explains, it's a good example of this stage, so let's see. Bear with me. Okay, here we go.
Okay, and so how old are you?
17.
Alright. If you had a third eye, where would you put it?
Probably in the back of my head.
Why?
So I can see behind me and in front of me at all times.
Okay. If Kelly is taller than Allie, and Allie is taller than Joe. Who's the tallest?
Kelly.
Yeah, okay, good. What would happen if people stopped having children?
Oh my God. Then the human evolution will come to an end.
Okay, what are some things that would happen before that?
People are gonna be unhappy. I don't know. I don't know. I guess people are gonna be like having sex with condoms on. I don't know.
Okay, alright, so moving on, which leads us to influence. Piaget had many influences. I'm going to start off, when I Googled this, so many came up, so I'm just going to start naming them and who they were and what they did. Immanuel Kant, he was a German philosopher. Alfred Bennett was a French psychologist. Konrad Lorenz was an Austrian zoologist, ethologist, and ornithologist. Claude Lévi-Strauss was a French anthropologist and ethnologist. Henri Bergson, a French philosopher. Pierre Janet, a French psychologist, philosopher, and psychotherapist. Sabina Spielrein was a Russian physician and one of the first female psychoanalysts. Theodore Simon, a French psychologist. James Mark Baldwin, an American philosopher and psychologist. Ernst Mach, an Austrian physicist and philosopher. C. H. Waddington, British developmental biologist, paleontologist, geneticist, embryologist, and philosopher. And Felix Klein, German mathematician and mathematics educator. So he had many influences. Piaget's late life. John Piaget was most definitely one of the most developmental psychologists. One of the most popular developmental psychologists, especially during the 20th century. He lived a long, fulfilled life and accomplished a lot during his lifetime. He influenced and still influences many. He passed away at the age of 84 in 1980. Influence on current teaching practices. Piaget's theory does impact learning, especially when it comes to curriculum and instruction. Educators have to come up with an age-appropriate curriculum that focuses on the child's logic and conceptual growth. When it comes to instruction, teachers have to make sure they are encouraging their students to want to learn. Piaget believed that this was more important than making your students sit still and listen to what you want them to do and or want them to learn, which is so true in today's classrooms. If you make your instruction more engaging instead of just like making the students sit still and listen and telling them, you're going to find that they're going to listen more when you engage with them. Respect each and every one of your students as well as their ideas. Piaget believed each child's cognitive development was impacted by other children's ideas, which is so true as well. And here are my references. Thanks, guys. Sorry if some of this didn't make sense, but thanks.